Plant Identification 101. Our first goal to begin identifying plants is to identify the basic categories that plants fall under at a high level. We'll identify 5 categories of plants, and with just 1 or 2 questions, you can look at any plant and identify which of those 5 categories it falls under. Let's get right into it. Step 1. Determine if it's a flowering plant by asking the following question. Is it a conifer, a fern, or a moss? If it's one of these, it is not a flowering plant, and you're done. These are all categories of their own, our first 3 categories. Mosses have neither seeds nor vascular tissue. Water and nutrients diffuse freely through the plant, which limits how tall they can get. Ferns are vascular plants, but they don't have seeds. They reproduce through spores that can be found on the underside of their leaves. Conifers, or more broadly gymnosperms, are plants with seeds but not flowers. The seeds are naked, not enclosed in an ovary. That said, these are a minority of the plants that we care about. At least 90% of what we care about are flowering plants. So if it's one of these, you're done. Otherwise, it's a flowering plant and we move on to step 2. Step 2. Is it a monocot or a dicot? Roughly, you might call these blade-leaved or broad-leaved plants, but don't get too attached to those labels. There are multiple differences between monocots and dicots that make them easy to tell apart. The most noticeable differences are the structure of the leaf veins and the structure of the flowers. For the leaves, monocot leaves have parallel veins and are typically long and narrow, like a blade. Their flower parts come in multiples of 3, with the veins running parallel along the length of the leaf. Dicots, on the other hand, have a webbed or reticulate vein structure. The leaves tend to be more broad. For the flowers, monocots have flower parts in multiples of 3. Most often you'll see 6 petals on a flower. There are other differences between these groups as well. Monocot seeds sprout a single cotyledon, the embryonic leaf, while dicots sprout 2 cotyledons. This is where the names come from. There are also differences in the structure of the roots, the pollen, and the vein distribution in the stems. Once you can tell the differences between these 2 types of flowering plants, you've mastered the basics of plant identification. Now, it should be said that these 5 categories are a slight oversimplification and reality is a bit messier. But for most practical purposes, these 5 categories will get you far. But I do just want to take a moment to talk about what else falls outside these categories and where they break down a bit. First of all, the most primitive things that can still be considered plants are certain types of green algae. Similar to the moss category, there are other types of non-vascular plants like liverworts and hornworts that aren't the same as mosses. Similar to the fern category, there are other types of vascular plants like club mosses and horsetails. These played a big role in the ancient past, but today they are quite rare. The conifer group can be broadened to include other gymnosperms, seed plants without flowers, which includes cycads as well as the single living fossil Ginkgo biloba. Monocots are a well-defined monophyletic group, but dicots are not a true group in the same sense. There is a true group called the eudicots, which are monophyletic and share many traits in common like their pollen structure. But there are other outgroups as well, like the magnoliids, which superficially resemble dicots but are not part of the same lineage. Now, having said all of that, these miscellaneous groups I've mentioned tend to be less common or visible, so you don't need to worry too much about them. These 5 categories will help you understand 99% of plants that you will encounter. Now that you know the basic categories of plants, try practicing this step. Go outside and look at some plants and try putting this knowledge into use. Now, this is a top-down approach, and it is a bit simplified. The next stage in plant identification begins from the bottom up, where we will identify common families of plants. Now, there are hundreds of plant families, which can sound intimidating, but you will be surprised how far you can get by knowing just a few of them. Thanks for watching. Until next time.